My name is Sophie, and if you asked anyone who knows me, they'd probably tell you I've always been the responsible one. The steady, dependable daughter who never caused trouble, never asked for much, and just quietly worked hard to build a life for herself. I'm 29 now, living in a small suburban town in Ohio. I work in marketing at a tech company. It's not glamorous, but it pays well, and I've always taken pride in knowing I earned every single thing I have. I've never been the kind of person to ask for handouts. I buy what I can afford, and when I can't afford something, I wait until I can. My family, though, that's another story. I grew up with parents who had a very clear favorite. My younger brother, Ryan, has been the golden child since the day he was born. He's 25 now, but you'd think he was still a teenager by the way they baby him. My mom and dad, Linda and Mark, would bend over backwards to give him whatever he wanted. And me? I was just expected to figure things out on my own. If I wanted something, I worked for it. If Ryan wanted something, he got it handed to him. I used to tell myself it didn't matter, that it made me stronger. But deep down, it stung, especially when I worked overtime, skipped nights out with friends, and said no to vacations just to save money, while Ryan partied, quit jobs whenever they got too stressful, and still managed to live better than I did. Still, I pushed on, and finally, after years of saving, I bought something I'd been dreaming of since I was a teenager, my very own car. Not just any car either, a shiny, black, almost new SUV. It wasn't brand new, but it was perfect. Smooth, clean, everything I wanted. I signed the papers myself, paid with my own savings. It was mine, and I'd never felt prouder in my life. The day I drove it home, I actually cried. My friends teased me, but I didn't care. That car represented every late night I spent working on marketing campaigns, every raise I earned, every weekend I skipped fun because I was budgeting. But here's the thing about life. You can feel like you're finally winning, finally stepping into your own, and in the blink of an eye, someone can snatch it all away. At the time, I had no idea. I was too busy beaming every time I walked out of my apartment and saw that SUV gleaming in the driveway. Too busy imagining road trips, too busy planning how I'd drive it to my first business trip the following week. I thought I had it all under control, but I didn't realize that the very people who were supposed to protect me were already planning the betrayal that would nearly break me. A week after I bought the SUV, I had to leave for a business trip. It wasn't anything glamorous, just a week-long marketing conference in Chicago. But to me, it was a big deal. My company was finally trusting me enough to represent us outside of the office. And honestly, I couldn't wait to drive my new car to the airport. I know that probably sounds silly, but when you've waited as long as I did for something, even the smallest excuse to use it feels special. That morning, I loaded my suitcase in the back, ran my hand along the smooth paint, and whispered, "See you soon." I didn't know I'd regret those words later. The whole week in Chicago, I was buzzing with excitement. Every time I sat in the hotel lobby waiting for meetings, I'd scroll through pictures of my car on my phone. I even showed one to a coworker, bragging a little. I'm not usually the bragging type, but it felt so good to finally have something worth showing off. My parents called me while I was gone, just to check in. My mom's voice was sweet as always when she was pretending to care. "Don't work too hard, honey. Remember, life's not just about work." That line stung more than she knew, because whenever I wasn't working, they accused me of being lazy. And now that I was working hard, they acted like it was too much. Meanwhile, Ryan could sit around all day playing video games, and they'd call him creative and free-spirited. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself that when I came back home, I'd finally get a week to just enjoy myself. Maybe a long drive with the windows down, music blasting. Maybe I'd even take a quick trip to the lake. I earned it. But when my flight landed late Friday night, something felt off. I remember pulling into my neighborhood in the rideshare, half asleep but smiling, because I knew my car was waiting for me in the driveway. My driver slowed down in front of my house, and my eyes darted to the spot where it should have been parked. Empty. Completely empty. At first, I thought maybe I'd misremembered. Maybe I'd left it at the office. But no, I was sure I parked it at home before leaving for the airport. My chest tightened, and before I could stop myself, I said out loud, "Where's my car?" The driver gave me a weird look in the rearview mirror, but I didn't care. My mind was racing. Had it been stolen? Did I forget to lock it? Was this really happening? I stumbled out of the car with my suitcase, heart pounding. My driveway looked naked without the SUV sitting there, and the longer I stared at that empty patch of concrete, the more my stomach twisted. Panic set in fast. I rushed inside, dropped my bags, and grabbed my phone. My first instinct was to call the police. I was halfway through dialing when my mom called me instead. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Oh, good, you're back. Come over in the morning. We need to talk." My hands were shaking. "Mom, my car is gone. Someone stole it." There was a pause. Then, in the most casual tone in the world, she said words that made my blood run cold. "Oh, honey, nobody stole it. We sold it." For a second, I couldn't even process what she'd said. "We what?" My voice cracked. "What do you mean sold it? That's my car." On the other end, my mom sighed, like I was being dramatic about nothing. "Sophie, calm down. It's not the end of the world. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning, face to face." But I wasn't calm. I couldn't be. My knees actually buckled, and I had to sit down on the edge of my bed. My brand new car, the one thing in my life I'd bought completely on my own, was gone. And the people who were supposed to support me had taken it. I barely slept that night. My head spun with questions, with anger, with pure disbelief. Over and over, I told myself there had to be some mistake, that maybe I'd misheard, but deep down, I knew I hadn't. The next morning, I drove my old beat-up sedan. Thankfully, I hadn't sold it yet, to my parents' house. My chest was tight the whole way there. The second I stepped inside, I could feel the tension. Ryan was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, looking smug. My dad was in his recliner with the TV on low, and my mom was in the kitchen sipping her coffee like it was just another Saturday. I dropped my keys on the counter harder than I meant to. "Where is my car?" I demanded. My dad muted the TV. "Sophie, sit down. Let's be adults about this." "Adults?" I snapped. "You sold my car without asking me." Ryan chuckled under his breath, and my head whipped toward him. "What's so funny?" He finally looked up, smirking. "Relax, Soph. I needed the money more than you did." My jaw dropped. "You? What are you talking about?" My mom set her mug down. "Sweetheart, Ryan and Chloe wanted to take a little vacation, Cancun, just for a week. You know how hard he's been working lately?" I actually laughed, one of those bitter, humorless laughs. Hard? He quit his job at the car wash 2 months ago because it was too stressful. Ryan rolled his eyes. "You wouldn't get it. I deserved a break." "And so you sold my car." My voice shook as I turned back to my parents. "Something I worked years for without even asking me?" My dad held up his hand like I was the unreasonable one. "Sophie, you'll get another car. You're smart. You've got a good job. You'll manage. Ryan needed this more than you. He deserves to live a little." I stared at them, stunned into silence. It was like I wasn't even their daughter. Like everything I sacrificed, every late night I worked meant nothing compared to Ryan's need for a vacation. And the worst part, the three of them just sat there looking at me like I was the selfish one for being upset. In that moment, something inside me snapped. But instead of yelling, instead of screaming or crying the way they probably expected, I took a deep breath and smiled. Because right then, I knew something they didn't. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They thought I'd just roll over and take it. But I was already planning how I'd make them regret every smug word. I sat there in their living room, forcing myself to stay calm. My heart was racing, but on the outside, I tried to look collected. So, let me get this straight, I said slowly, staring right at my mom. You took something that belonged to me, you sold it without asking me, and you gave the money to Ryan so he can go on vacation. Ryan grinned like it was the funniest thing in the world. Not just any vacation, Sophie, Cancun, all-inclusive, sun, beaches, drinks by the pool. It was amazing. He stretched back on the couch, hands behind his head. Best week of my life. The way he said it, with that smugness dripping off every word, made me want to scream. My mom actually smiled at him. See? He came back refreshed. He's been under so much pressure. Pressure? I nearly choked. He doesn't even have a job. Ryan shot me a look. That's not true. I've been figuring things out, trying to find my passion. Dad cleared his throat, like he was trying to end the argument. Enough. Sophie, you've always been independent. You can handle things. Your brother needed this. It was the right decision. The right decision. I wanted to shout that it was theft, that it was betrayal, that they had stolen something irreplaceable from me. But as I looked at the three of them, my parents completely blind with favoritism, my brother basking in their approval, I realized something. If I exploded right then, they'd dismiss me, call me dramatic, tell me I was selfish for not being happy for Ryan. And honestly, that's exactly what they were doing already. Why are you so angry, Mom asked, like I was being unreasonable. It's just a car. You can always buy another one. Just a car. Those words rang in my head like a gunshot. Just a car? That SUV represented years of sacrifice, years of being overlooked while Ryan got everything handed to him. It was proof that I could stand on my own, and they had erased it like it was nothing. But I didn't argue anymore. I just forced a smile and nodded. You're right, I said softly. It's just the car. My parents visibly relaxed, like they'd tucked sense into me. Ryan smirked and went back to scrolling on his phone, already bored of the conversation. Inside, though, my blood was boiling. I wasn't done, not even close. I drove back home that afternoon in silence, gripping the steering wheel of my old sedan so hard my knuckles turned white. Every word they'd said replayed in my mind. Just the car. You'll get another one. Ryan deserved it more. Fine. If that was how they saw me, someone who would just replace what they stole, then I'd do exactly that. But I wouldn't stop there. I'd replace it with something so much bigger, something that would make their jaws drop, their smug smiles vanish, and I'd make sure they could never touch it. That was the moment the plan began forming in my mind, and they had no idea what was coming. The days after that conversation felt like a blur. I went to work as usual, smiled at my coworkers, delivered my presentations. On the outside, I looked fine, but inside, I was boiling. Every time I thought about Ryan lounging in Cancun with Chloe, sipping margaritas that had been paid for with my hard work, my stomach twisted. And every time I thought about my parents shrugging it off like it was nothing, I felt that sting deep in my chest. It wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about what it represented, how little they valued me. The worst part was how they kept trying to convince me I was the problem. A few days later, Mom called. Sophie, I just want to remind you that holding on to anger isn't healthy. You're too sensitive about these things. We did what was best for the family. Best for the family. Those 4 words nearly made me drop my phone. Then Dad chimed in during Sunday dinner. You can't measure life by what you own, Soph. You need to let go. Be happy your brother got to experience something special. And Ryan, oh, Ryan, loved to rub it in. Every time I saw him, he had some new story about Cancun. The fancy dinners, the boat ride, the clubs. You would have hated it, Soph. You're too uptight. But me and Chloe, we lived it up. I'd nod and pretend to listen, even smile sometimes, because I wanted him to think I didn't care. But inside, my anger was hardening into something sharper, something dangerous. I started researching late at night, scrolling through websites, watching videos. I wanted something that screamed success, something bigger, flashier, impossible to ignore. Something my parents and Ryan could never in their wildest dreams sell out from under me. That's when I landed on it. The Tesla Model X. Sleek, powerful, electric. A car that wasn't just transportation, but a statement. I couldn't afford it right away, of course, but I started putting aside extra money, cutting back even more than I already had. And this time, I wasn't just saving for myself. I was saving for revenge. Still, one problem lingered in the back of my mind. My family. If they sold my SUV without a second thought, what would stop them from trying to reallocate my Tesla if they ever got the chance? That's when a different kind of idea struck me. Not just to buy the car, but to make sure it was untouchable. I remember whispering to myself late one night, staring at my laptop screen, "You'll never take from me again." That was the moment my revenge fully took shape. And I couldn't wait to watch their faces when they realized they'd lost all control over me. But before that day came, I had to keep playing my role, the quiet, obedient daughter. Because the last thing they'd ever expect was that I was already building the perfect trap. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that revenge takes patience. I couldn't just storm into a dealership and buy a Tesla the next day. That would have been reckless and worse, predictable. No, I had to play the long game. For weeks, I kept my head down. I answered my parents' calls, nodded when they gave me their condescending little lectures, even sat through Ryan's endless bragging about Cancun. Every time he laughed about how Chloe loved the resort's infinity pool or how they blew hundreds on cocktails, I bit my tongue until it almost bled. Because the more he gloated, the sweeter my payback would feel. But I knew I couldn't pull this off alone. So one night, I drove over to my best friend Ashley's apartment. Ashley had been in my life since high school. Unlike my family, she actually respected me, and she knew exactly how much that SUV had meant. The second I walked through her door, she said, "You're still mad about the car, huh?" I didn't even hesitate. Mad? Ashley, they stole from me, and I'm not just gonna let it go. She raised an eyebrow. So, what's the plan? That was all the invitation I needed. I sat on her couch and laid it out. The Tesla, the savings, the silent revenge I was plotting. And then I told her the most important part. I want the car in your name, not mine. Ashley blinked. Wait, what? Why? Because, I said, leaning forward, my parents can't be trusted. They sold my last car like it was theirs to give away. If this one's in your name, they'll never be able to touch it. Not legally, not ever. For a moment, Ashley just stared at me. Then a slow grin spread across her face. Sophie, that's evil. I love it. I felt my first real spark of joy in weeks. We spent hours that night running through the details. Ashley would help with the paperwork. I'd handle the financing and payments. On paper, it would be hers, but in reality, it would be mine. My revenge would be sitting right there in my driveway, gleaming like a trophy they could never claim. When I left her apartment that night, Ashley called after me with a laugh. They'll never see this coming. And she was right. Because while I was quietly building my future, Ryan and Chloe's perfect little vacation bubble was already starting to burst. And watching it unravel would be the cherry on top of my plan. I didn't have to wait long before the cracks in Ryan's perfect vacation started to show. At first, he wouldn't shut up about it. Every phone call, every dinner, it was nothing but Cancun stories. The resort was insane, Soph, like 5 pools. And the breakfast buffet, I had steak and shrimp every morning. He'd laugh, glancing at me like he expected me to be jealous. I forced a polite smile. Sounds nice. What I didn't say was, of course it sounds nice. It was paid for with my car. But then the tone of his story started to change. Instead of bragging, he started complaining in little ways. At first, it was about money. I kept my voice flat. Well, maybe you should have budgeted better. He glared at me. Not everyone's uptight like you, Sophie. We were there to have fun. Still, I noticed the tension in his voice, and I noticed something else too. Chloe wasn't around as much. When Ryan first got back, she was glued to his side, showing off pictures on Instagram. But within a couple of weeks, her visits became less frequent. I didn't pry. I didn't need to. Because Ashley had a cousin who actually worked at the very resort Ryan and Chloe stayed at. And when she heard about who my brother was, she spilled everything. Turns out, the dream trip wasn't so dreamy after all. Ryan had insisted on splurging. Fancy dinners, boat rentals, bottle service at clubs. He kept throwing money around like it was endless. Chloe, of course, encouraged it. But by day 4, their cash was running low. And when Ryan tried to say no to Chloe's shopping spree, she threw a tantrum in the middle of the hotel lobby. Apparently, the fight was loud enough that half the staff overheard it. By the last 2 days of the trip, they were barely speaking to each other. Ryan spent most of the time sulking by the pool while Chloe went out with some new friends she'd met. Ashley's cousin told me bluntly, yeah, everyone could see that girl was done with him. She wasn't into him, she was into the free trip. I almost laughed out loud when I heard that. My parents had sold my car so Mayan could play big shot in Cancun, and his girlfriend had probably been flirting with someone else the whole time. But the real kicker came a week after they got home. Chloe dumped him. He didn't tell me directly, of course, but I found out through Facebook. One minute, her profile was full of beach selfies with Ryan's arm around her. The next, every single picture of him was gone, and her status changed from in a relationship to single. Ryan was devastated. He stomped around the house, whining about how ungrateful Chloe was, how she'd used him. My mom hugged him, my dad patted his shoulder, and together they told him he deserved better. Meanwhile, I sat in the corner, sipping my coffee, hiding the smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, because the irony was delicious. They'd stolen from me so Ryan could have his luxury getaway. And what did he come back with? Empty pockets, a broken heart, and a reputation for being a fool. The same parents who told me to be happy for your brother now had to watch him sulk like a child who dropped his ice cream. And me, I just kept saving, quietly, patiently. Every dollar brought me closer to the Tesla. Every setback for Ryan made my victory taste even sweeter. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't just rebuilding what they took from me. I was setting up the perfect stage, and the performance was only a few months away. By the time Ryan's Cancun disaster fully unfolded, I was already deep into my plan. Every evening after work, I'd sneak away to review Tesla listings, compare prices, and figure out financing. I didn't tell anyone a word. No calls to my parents, no casual mentions to friends. This had to be my secret, my little weapon. Ashley had been my partner in crime from the beginning. We spent hours coordinating the details: how to get the car title in her name, the paperwork, everything. I even had her scout out the local dealership discreetly, making sure no one we knew would accidentally see me test driving the car. Every step was calculated. Every detail mattered. Meanwhile, my parents never stopped. They'd still call me constantly, peppering their conversations with guilt. "Sophie, Ryan's really been down since Cancun. You should check on him," Mom would say, as if I owed him emotional support on top of my stolen car. "You're too hard on your brother, Soph. All he wanted was a little fun. You've always been so serious about everything." They didn't see it, but each conversation only fueled me. Each time they dismissed my feelings, I told myself, perfect. They'll be the first to feel the shock. Even Ryan kept running his mouth. I can't believe you're still upset about that old SUV. I mean, it's just a car. You're being ridiculous, Soph." I smiled politely, the same way I smiled through their gaslighting when they sold my car. On the inside, though, I was counting down the days. Every payment I made, every secret trip to the dealership, every late night planning, it all brought me closer to the moment when I would finally show them who was untouchable. And the anticipation was delicious. Because they had no idea, no inkling that the car I was secretly saving for would be more than just a replacement. It would be a symbol, a reminder that I didn't need their approval, their favoritism, or their manipulation. And, most importantly, it would be untouchable. By midsummer, the Tesla was ready. Ashley handled the last of the paperwork, and just like we planned, the title was in her name. Legally, my parents and Ryan had zero access. Practically, though, it was mine. Every detail was perfect. I couldn't wait to see the looks on their faces. The thought alone made my heart race. And still, my parents kept trying to guilt-trip me. "Do you really need that car, Sophie?" Mom asked one evening, her voice so sweet it almost made me laugh. "It's expensive. Are you sure you're not overdoing it?" Overdoing it? As if the years of hard work, the stolen SUV, the silent sacrifices I had made meant nothing. I just smiled and nodded, keeping my mouth shut. "You're probably right," I said softly. But inside, I was already imagining the barbecue, the moment I'd drive up and everyone's jaws would drop, the moment Ryan would ask for the keys, the moment I'd reveal that the car was untouchable. It was coming, and nothing they said or did could stop it. The day of the family barbecue arrived, and I could barely contain myself. I spent the morning quietly checking every detail. Tesla charged, polished, perfect. Ashley had driven it over a few times just to make sure there were no hiccups with the title or registration. Everything was flawless. I arrived fashionably late, as planned. The scent of grilled burgers and summer sun hit me the moment I stepped out of my old sedan. Kids ran around with water guns, Ryan was tossing a football with some cousins, and my parents were laughing at something trivial. I grinned to myself. Perfect scene, perfect stage. Then I saw him, Ryan, lounging by the pool, smirking like he owned the world. "Hey, Soph, you ready to finally relax and not be so uptight?" he called out, clearly still trying to needle me about my serious nature. I just waved, pretending not to hear. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. I drove up slowly in the Tesla Model X. Its sleek black frame gleamed in the afternoon sun. The sound of the engine was electric, quiet, powerful, a statement before I even got out of the car. Time seemed to slow. I saw heads turn. Murmurs rose among the guests. And then, of course, Ryan spotted it. "No way. Is that yours?" I stepped out, casually leaning against the door. "Well," I let the pause stretch. "Not exactly mine." Ryan's face twisted in confusion. "Wait, what do you mean?" I smiled, enjoying every second. "The title's not in my name. So technically, this car isn't mine. And let's be honest, it's not for selfish thieves. There was a beat of silence. My parents froze, their smiles fading. Ryan's jaw practically hit the grass. Wait, what? Mom said, her voice tight. Yeah, I said, still leaning against the Tesla, savoring it. I didn't just replace the SUV you sold. I made sure no one could ever touch this one. Not you, not Ryan, not anyone. The shock on Ryan's face was priceless. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then tried again. Sophie, come on. Give me the keys. I just wanna. Nope, I interrupted, smiling wider. Keys aren't going anywhere. Maybe if you worked for something yourself, you'd have one. A hush fell over the backyard. Guests were staring. The neighbors probably were too. And my parents? They looked like someone had just slapped them across the face. I could see it all. The realization slowly sinking in that they'd underestimated me. That for the first time, I wasn't the quiet, obedient daughter. I was untouchable. And the best part? It wasn't just about showing off. It was about proving that hard work beats handouts, that integrity, patience, and planning will always win in the end. I even pulled out my phone later that evening and posted a few photos on Facebook. The caption read, "Hard work is greater than handouts. This is what real success looks like." By the time I put my phone down, I could already feel the shift in the family dynamic. Ryan's shoulders slumped, my parents couldn't meet my eyes, and me? I'd never felt freer in my life. But little did they know, that was just the beginning of the story. The days following the barbecue were deliciously chaotic. Ryan didn't speak much at all. Every time he tried to make a comment about the Tesla or guilt me into sharing, I just smiled and shook my head. It wasn't just a card to me anymore. It was a symbol of every time I had been dismissed, every slight, every stolen opportunity. And now, finally, it was untouchable. My parents, meanwhile, were walking around in a constant state of awkwardness. My mom kept glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking, probably trying to figure out how I'd managed it. My dad muttered something about parenting lessons under his breath, though I'm sure it wasn't meant as a compliment. And then came Ryan's ultimate humiliation. A week after the barbecue, he tried to flaunt his Cancun trip again. But Chloe, yes, the same girl who had been a key part of this whole debacle, had dumped him. Apparently, she got bored, realized he was broke, and moved on without a second thought. I heard about it through my cousin, who ran into Ryan sulking at the local coffee shop. The sight of him, wallet nearly empty, ego bruised, and love life destroyed sent a thrill through me that I'll admit freely. Karma finally delivered in living color. At first, my parents tried to console him. "It's okay, Ryan. There are plenty of fish in the sea," my mom said, patting his shoulder. But he wasn't consolable. Not after losing both the fling and the bragging rights. And my parents? They couldn't very well say, "Well, maybe don't steal your sister's car next time." So they just simmered in their embarrassment. Meanwhile, I got to drive past them every single day in my Tesla, a little smug smile playing on my lips. Every glance from them reminded me that I had outsmarted them. I wasn't just back on equal footing, I was on top. I even started teasing them subtly at family gatherings. "Oh, don't worry, Dad. You can borrow the Tesla sometime, once you've earned it." They never took me up on it. And as for Ryan, let's just say that week changed him. He became a little less cocky, a little more aware that life doesn't hand you everything. I didn't gloat directly, but I didn't need to. The look on his face every time he realized he couldn't touch the car spoke volumes. Ashley, of course, got a kick out of it too. She kept reminding me how perfect it was that the Tesla was in her name. "They'll never see it coming," she'd say, laughing. And she was right. I finally felt like I had reclaimed my power. Not just my car, but my dignity. I wasn't just the overlooked daughter anymore. I was someone who could play smart, who could outthink the people who thought they could control me. And the best part? It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was proof. Proof that patience, planning, and self-respect are worth more than any spoiled vacation or stolen car. By the end of that week, I realized something. The Tesla, the perfect reveal, even Ryan's broken-hearted downfall, it was all secondary. The real victory was that I had finally drawn the line. And from that day forward, no one in my family would ever underestimate me again. Weeks passed, and life slowly settled into a new rhythm. The Tesla became a part of my everyday life, not just a car, but a symbol of everything I had fought for. Driving it, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't realized I'd been missing all those years. It wasn't about showing off anymore. It was about reclaiming my own life. Ryan eventually stopped bringing up Cancun altogether. The breakup with Chloe hit him harder than anyone expected, and he spent months licking his wounds while I quietly reveled in my quiet victory. He learned, finally, that not everything could be handed to him, that some things had to be earned. My parents, well, they never apologized. Not directly, anyway. But I could see it in their faces when I drove past the house or when I casually mentioned a new accomplishment at family dinners. They had no leverage over me anymore, no control. The little smirks and dismissive comments had no power. I realized that the Tesla wasn't really about the car itself. It was about standing up for myself, about proving that I didn't have to play by their rules, and that I could protect what was mine without them ever realizing it until it was too late. Ashley and I laughed about it countless times. "Remember when they thought they had us?" she said once, shaking her head. "Best part is, they'll never see it coming again." And she was right. I had spent so much of my life bending, compromising, and sacrificing for the people who should have supported me the most. But now, finally, I didn't have to. I had my independence, my success, and the satisfaction of knowing that every time they glanced at me, they saw someone they couldn't touch, someone they couldn't manipulate, and someone they couldn't outsmart. The irony of it all, the SUV, the Cancun disaster, the Tesla, wasn't lost on me. Life had a strange way of balancing things out, and while I don't believe in holding grudges forever, I do believe in making sure people understand your worth. That's what this was, a lesson in respect, patience, and silent power. I smiled every time I slid into the driver's seat. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need Ryan's validation. All I needed was to know that I could take control of my own life. And from that day forward, I never let anyone steal a piece of me again. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud or violent. It's calculated, deliberate, and absolutely untouchable. And that is exactly how I wanted it.